and welcome to season 1 of the official P&O Cruises podcast, Heart to Heart with me, Amy Hart. I am so excited to be hosting this podcast. Some of you may know that I used to be cabin crew and my favourite thing was meeting new people, learning about their lives, asking them questions. So hosting this is an absolute dream come true. Across the series, we'll be meeting some well-known faces and we'll definitely learn a lot more about them. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go and meet them. Today, my guest is singer and supermum Sophie Ellis-Bextor, and I cannot wait to hear all about her life, career and travels. Sophie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for asking me.
That's all right. We're in your house. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely amazing. It is putting my really boring clinical new build to shame. I'm actually obsessed.
You know what? You could probably nick something and I wouldn't even notice. So get your big handbag out.
So if you're listening, basically, Sophie has the most amazing collection of, what would you call them? Like trinkets or like memorabilia?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind. I think, and I have referred to it as just rubbish someone else didn't want. A lot of it is stuff I find in vintage shops, at car boot sales, on eBay. I'm just, I love stuff. I also get things when I travel, actually. So a lot of things are from places I've been on tour, far-flung places I've visited, because I love bringing things back and having a little story with stuff. It makes me happy.
You've actually got some of the Mouseketeer dolls. I can't turn around because I'm away from the microphone. But I'm obviously obsessed with Disney, so I loved that. And I'm also obsessed with the Queen, the late Queen. So I love that, in fact, you've got a coronation pop-up book. I loved that.
Yes, and a Queen puzzle, like an old school one. This is the Queen from the sort of 50s or 60s, I guess. I've got a couple of Mouseketeers now. It's funny because someone once said to me, when did you start collecting dolls? And I said, I don't collect dolls. And then I realised I do, actually. I just didn't really realise that's what I was doing. I also think when the kids are older, they're going to confess that 90% of what I've bought scares them. I think a lot of it's got a creepy aspect. I quite like things that don't mean to be creepy, but they're just a bit off. So you've got like a spooky doll. I'm probably going to quite like her. I'll give her a home.
Yeah, you'll give her a home. You're like, like Weird Barbie in the Barbie film.
Yeah.
You're like, I will have you.
Oh, yeah. She can come. She'll be right at home.
What would you say is your favourite thing that you've bought away from like travels?
Oh, golly, just one. I mean, right, so I'm looking behind you. I'm trying to see where I've got things from. So I can see things I bought in Eastern Europe. I've spent a lot of time in places like Ukraine and Lithuania. I can see things from a trip when I went to India. I can see things from Thailand. I'm really lucky. And I have to say, one of the things I absolutely adore about my job is travel. And it has never failed to impress me. Those days where you have, really early breakfast in your own kitchen, and by lunchtime you're somewhere in Europe and you're having, pasta on the beach or something for lunch. I think we're so lucky, especially in the UK, because so many places, you don't have to travel very far to be somewhere and you're just completely immersed in a different culture. I just absolutely adore that feeling.
I know, and I also love the fact that, I take for granted the fact, like, I've grown up in Worthing, that Gatwick Airport's 40 minutes away. Like, I never think about people that live like 5 hours away from an airport. And also, like, Gatwick and Heathrow, I go to everywhere.
I'm 20 minutes from Heathrow here.
Yeah.
And I think from when I was little, my parents encouraged me to be curious about the world. And my dad especially was really good at getting me to do this thing where he'd get me to take a snapshot with my mind. So when I was 8, I went to visit family in Canada. And from there, we did a big road trip through North Dakota and South Dakota and saw Mount Rushmore. And he said to me, right, look at this scene, there's Niagara Falls, there's Mount Rushmore, take a photo in your mind. And it really worked. So I've got all these like files in my head from all this travel. And I think if you can sort of go somewhere where you're completely foreign, all your reference points are gone, and you can just have that wonder, it's a really good thing if that doesn't freak you out too much and you've got that wanderlust. And I've definitely got it. And I want my kids to have it too.
We want to do 89 days in America when my boyfriend moves on from his business. We want to do 89 days.
Why 89?
Because you can only do 90 on a visa.
Oh, it's
so
practical.
You need one buffer day just in case your flight's cancelled.
No, that's good. I thought maybe there was like a mystical reason. No, it's literally just the practicality. It's admin.
Like the absolute most
red
you can
tape.
do.
Okay.
Would you say North and South Dakota is worth a visit? Because it's not on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the States is people get really familiar with the coasts.
Yeah.
And I think, I've always wanted to do a road trip for sure. And there's still so many places I haven't been. And I think it's quite fun. I remember one time I did a trip. I was lucky enough to have a job in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And New Orleans is an extraordinary place. You've got to fit that into your 89 days. And while I was there, I walked into this shop and they had a big globe, and I just had that feeling, when you suddenly realize like how teeny tiny you are, and I could see on the globe, I could spin it and see where I was, and I was like, it's mad that right now I'm somewhere so other, I've never been here before. I might never cross paths with these people ever again, but what an experience. And then you take away all these stories that you then pull out of your head and remember these crazy things that happened. That at a haunted tour of New Orleans, which was great. It's supposed to be the most haunted state in America. So I recommend that.
I like that. So aside from your big road trip, where did you used to go on holiday when you were a kid?
Europe, probably like most kids of the 80s. It was packing up the car and traveling to the south of France. Yeah, and my parents had a little caravan that my dad made me call a gîte, because that's the French for a small house. It was a caravan. I wasn't allowed to call it a caravan.
Not a caravan.
No, it was like definitely a caravan. But basically they made it with, they put a wooden roof on it and a little decking outside, so that it didn't move anywhere. And it was on a caravan site, and it had there a little pool, and then we go to the beach, and it's a place called Saint-Maxime, which is a lot of French families going down there. It's not too far from the places that are a bit more zhuzhy, like Saint-Tropez, but it's definitely much more bucket and spade territory. It's really fun.
Oh, amazing. So then, obviously, you grew up. What were your first jobs?
Oh, first, it's not a very long list. My CV is quite limited, actually. I had a Saturday job in a hairdresser's.
Nice.
And I had a Sunday job for a little while in a shop in Covent Garden that sold like antique prints.
Amazing.
Which was, I found it quite boring, if I'm honest. Like, there wasn't high demand, so there was a lot of time just sat there. This is the days before mobile phones, so I wasn't able to just sit there texting or anything. My mum always jokes that the closest I've come to a regular job is when I did Strictly, because that was the most consistent thing. I was actually going back to the same place. Mostly I'm a bit more nomadic because, it's musician's life, I guess.
We'll talk about Strictly in a minute. I'm obsessed. I love it. So you did Groovejet, wasn't it? That was your first thing that you did.
Well, I was actually in a little indie band before that, which I'm really glad about that happened, because I was in a band called The Audience. We signed a record deal when I was 18.
Oh, amazing.
And that basically gave me a crash course in so much aspects of the music industry and what it was like to be in a band. And we split up and had been dropped from the label by the time I was 20. Yeah. So I felt quite high and dry. And then Groovejet came along to save me in lots of ways, not just because of its commercial success, but it also changed my perspective and introduced my head to the idea of actually being able to sing different genres, and that was all okay. I didn't have to stick in indie music, even though that's still close to my heart. Yeah.
And then how did your life change after that?
Well, I guess at first it was probably a bit of a kind of thing that kind of picked me up and whirled me around a little bit, but could have just put me down, and then everything simmers down again. So Groovejet as a song, it was a really big track, but in those days, this was in the year 2000, which is how I always know how old Groovejet is, so it's 23 now. It was very much the era of the DJ. So being the vocalist on a dance track didn't guarantee anything really. And my manager at the time stopped working with me the same week it came out. He didn't really understand why I'd done a dance track, which was fine. He just, held his hands up like, I can't help you with that. And he said to me, one bit of advice, don't go and sing in all the clubs. Well, I'd been previous to that dropped, didn't have any money, nothing going on. I sang in all those clubs. I was like, sorry, but I'm going to completely disregard that. So I think I was very fortunate that I actually, out of Groovejet, was offered a solo deal. Yeah. And I totally grabbed it with both hands. I was like, I know getting another crack of this is actually a really big deal. So when I did my solo album and had songs on it like Take Me Home and Murder on the Dance Floor, songs I still sing now.
Murder on the Dance Floor is... I've literally, while we're talking, I can see the video in my head. Like
the dance competition.
It's
where I'm evil.
It's iconic. And my mum used to have the album in the car, because my dad always used to buy my mum like 3 different CDs at Christmas, and that was one of them. So we always had your album. But Take Me Home, Cher song, isn't it?
It is a Cher song. Yes.
I did not know that until a drag queen in Brighton was like, I'm going to sing Take Me Home.
For getting the source of all knowledge.
Yeah, Sophie Ellis-Bextor song, but also a Cher song.
Well, check out the Cher version if you haven't already, because it's beautiful. So it's from the 70s. It came out in 1977. Was never released in the UK. But I heard it because when I was doing those club shows that I wasn't supposed to do, my tour manager at the time had a Larry Levan DJ, this DJ who used to DJ at a place in New York called the Paradise Garage. It was a compilation of loads of stuff he DJ'd. And one of the songs was this 7-minute version of Take Me Home. And I just fell in love with it. Yeah. And so when I signed to Polydor, I was putting together the album, I said, I'd really love to do a cover of this song. I just adore it. And I liked the fact that it hadn't been released here.
Yeah.
Because it felt like it's not like a completely easy punt. Like the UK don't know it. It's not like they're going to go, oh, this was a hit back in the day.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could build my own relationship with it. But the original, I still adore it. It's just
Have
glorious.
you ever met Cher?
I haven't.
Or does she know about the song? Like...
Well, I'll tell you something funny. So when I was doing the song, the lyrics in it, the original, the Cher version, are quite mature.
Yes.
She sang about like making love and all this by the fire, and I was like, I was 21. I was like, I'm not singing about making love, no thanks. So I changed a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah.
I basically made up this story, kind of as a bit of a see how far it would go. I made up a story that Cher had heard my version and didn't like it and said it was too raunchy. It was complete rubbish. I don't think she's ever heard it. I don't think she knows about me still. I just basically thought it was quite good sport to pretend that she'd been offended by the raunchiness of my lyrics. I don't think, can imagine me offending, shocking Cher. Is that possible? What is the best job you've ever done? Oh, well, it's like singing job or just generally
anything. Like obviously, I know you've done so many different things, like the Lego Masters. But like obviously, is there one thing that you thought like, oh wow, I really, really loved that? Well, I guess. I mean, there's lots of things I try my hand at, but music is completely where all roads lead, and it's the bit of me that is. Oh, sorry, it's the bit of me that is that resonates with me the most, and that's the thing I hope I always do. And I guess it's more like there's moments in what I do that just feel really special. So this summer has just been incredible. I've been doing lots of festivals, and for an artist like me to be having new adventures and things like, I don't know, Olive White's main stage and doing the Pyramid stage at Glastonbury. Yeah. It's like there's just a few moments where you really do have to just be completely there and present and just think this is incredible. And I was like actually like beaming from the moment I woke up when I was playing Glastonbury's main stage, and that's really special. Like even now I'm like, it's a wonderful feeling when there's something that happens that nothing can diminish. It stays like preserved as like a glorious thing that we all got to do. And I say we, like my husband Richard's in my band, my live band, my brother Jack's on drums, my sister Martha was side of stage, my eldest boy Sonny was there. The sun was shining, Sunday afternoon, it was perfect. Amazing. So your mum says that the only proper job you ever had was Strictly. Did you enjoy it? You know what, I did, and it gave me, oh wow, what an education in performance. Yeah. I mean, you'd think that I'd already been singing then for, nearly 20 years, but there was still a lot of me that was probably quite introverted and shy. And I really do think it allowed me, probably much to my children's horror, to become more uninhibited on stage, which is a really happy feeling, actually. Yeah. And now that I'm in my 40s, I feel like that little voice that used to worry about being cool, like, she's totally like mute now. Yeah. And I think Strictly was a big part of that, because I watched those dances and I saw you can't make something too big. Yeah. And I saw the joy that you watch, not from actually people being the best dancers, but the people that were having the most fun. Yeah. I think that's the charm in it. And I'd never watched the show when I did it. And I remember watching Deborah Meaden do a quick step and her face was beaming. She literally loved it. Yeah, she did. And I thought, I get it now. I get the charm in this show. And, it's a ridiculous environment. You're having to learn these new dances. You get given it on a Monday. You do it live in front of millions of people on Saturday night. Like even now, that's a bonkers equation. But what a ride. And I'm so happy I got to do so many different styles of dance. What was your favourite style?
My favourite was the Charleston. But I still think it's hilarious that I've done a Paso Doble live on telly. That's like so ridiculous. And every week when you do it, there's the voice of God going, and now dancing the American Smooth Foxtrot. And then you hear your name after it. You're like, sorry, what? Sorry, now it's a little bit like I'm about to do a Foxtrot. But something clicks in when that music starts and you just realise there's no getting out of this now. Better dance. Oh my gosh. Terrifying. But also completely exhilarating. Yeah. Mm.
So going back to travel, as an adult now, sort of what is on your travel bucket list?
So many places. I mean, like I said, I have been incredibly lucky and my passport is, pretty well stamped, but I've never been to Vietnam. I'd love to go there. I'd like to go back to India and places like Kerala. I've never been there. I'd like to do more exploring. There's so many places I'd like to revisit. Yeah. It's never kind of diminished my love of doing those things. I always love the adventure of it. And I hear stories of other musicians where they'll get to a place and they'll just stay in their hotel room.
Yeah.
That will never be me. And
No.
luckily it's never Richard either. So we will definitely eke out
Yeah.
every hour, every experience. We will hit the ground running. We'll go off and explore. We'll go and, eat all the food and go and visit them. And if you can swim in the sea, amazing. And yeah, I'm very good actually at getting the most out of wherever I find myself, even if it's only 24 hours.
So are you more of like a cultural adventurer kind of traveller? So instead of like, if you had the choice between going to like a little quaint sort of B&B in like Indonesia somewhere and sort of going out in rather than like an all-inclusive hotel in Mexico.
Oh yeah, I want to know the culture. I want to get immersed in it. And the nice thing is, a lot of tourists, and I've definitely been part of this equation. A lot of tourists, we can be quite predictable in our patterns.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be that crazy to fall out of that and find yourself somewhere that feels like you and you're not hearing, British voices behind you, and you're like, oh wow, I've stumbled across somewhere. And obviously now with the internet and having all of that information on our phones, you can do some amazing things. I remember I was on tour in Europe in the spring. We went to Poland. I've been to Poland lots of times, but this time was the first time I'd been. I read up online about these places called the milk bars, and they were around during the Soviet era. And so we went to this place. It's just full of locals. It's all sort of proper Eastern European food. There's no frills with it, but it's amazing venues. And all of these milk bars have all kept their character from that era. And I was like, I would never have known to do that if I hadn't had access to all that information online.
Are you like a planned packer or are you a spontaneous night before? Like I normally, before I had Stanley, and I mean, to be fair, I was still up last time I went away, even if I had him. I used to be up till 3 o'clock in the morning the night before packing.
Yeah, I mean, I can be pretty last minute. I'm a musician, so my plans can change very last minute. We can have things, I can find out I'm going somewhere with not much planning. But the thing that I hope you'll be moderately impressed with is I'm absolutely obsessed with hand luggage only. I take as few things as possible. I can do 10 days away, one bag, no trouble.
What?
I see it as a complete challenge.
Oh my God.
I've done full family trips, all 7 of us, all hand luggage. I love it. Like,
oh my God,
it's
I
a
take
weird.
my hat off to you.
It's a weird thing to find exciting, but I really get excited if I've done it.
See, I'm the night before booking extra suitcases, and Sam's going, Amy, we don't need all this stuff. Me and my best friend went to Spain just after lockdown finished. Like the borders reopened, went to Spain, and between the two of us, for 8 days, we had 72 kilos of luggage.
What?
My friends are planning my hen do next year, and they said okay, tell us what. And I was like, okay, no trainers, no life drawing, no
trainers for other people.
No, as in like no activities where I have to wear.
Oh, you thought you meant like comfortable footwear.
No,
like, wow, that's
I don't want to go on an
everybody
assault.
has to wear stilettos
all the time. No, I don't want to do an assault course. So no activities that include trainers, no life drawing. I can't think what that one was.
That's so specific. No, like, do some people do that on their
hen? I don't like
it. I've never been invited to one of them.
And then I said, oh, no,
Yeah.
Clubbing.
Yep.
And under no circumstances should I be hand luggage only. I need at least 23 kilos.
Golly. Okay, well, I understand it.
My mum is the queen of hand luggage only because we've got a place in
it.
Spain. We have all stuff left out there, but I still took 3 cases.
I don't know why. If I have to check in a bag, I feel I've failed a little bit. I'm a bit disappointed in myself. But what is quite funny is if I do have the opportunity to check a bag, I will take absolutely everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, woohoo, I can just chuck. Who cares if I wear that? But quite often I have to do what I call, like, in my head, like day to night Barbie vibes.
Yes.
So I'll have like, this is my stage wear, and then it has to be like, and then there's my other wear for like my travel day. Okay, I've got a little bit of press to do on that day, so I'll have all my things like ticked, and I'll try and like cross pollinate, and very little in outerwear if I'm going somewhere that's hot. And even with that though, I invariably find I've taken something I don't need.
Yeah. Do you have any like traditions? Like, I know you say about doing different things every time you go away, but do you have like things that are like set in stone every time you travel?
Well, I think definitely trying to get the most out of all your meal times is a bit of a, I like to eat. I don't want to waste any of the meal opportunities when you're somewhere else, and you can try some incredible food. And even if you were to have that same meal back home, it always tastes better in that environment, you know, with all the hubbub of wherever you find yourself. So that's something I feel I will travel, you know, within that environment to find the best places to eat. It can be street food, it can be in a market, it can be a restaurant. Yeah. It's unlikely to be anything too fancy, to be honest. I think you can find such amazing stuff. And I think actually probably just not wasting any time. Yeah. I think you don't want to come back and think, oh, actually, we were by the pool for ages, but we could have been out having some fun. I mean, look, sometimes you want to have some down days, but I quite often have really short amounts of time places, and then I have to move on to the next stop. So I just want to have like a memory of everywhere, really. It's important to me.
Snapshot in your head. I like that. I'm going to get Stanley to do that when he's a bit older.
Yeah, it does work, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, and any markets are always good.
Yeah.
I like finding stuff. And it's always that nice feeling while you're building your home. If you're like, oh, actually, I found, that rug somewhere and I would never have seen it again. And I picked it up and now it's here. And you kind of like start telling a story with the stuff you have.
Talking of food, you did a P&O Cruises holiday in 2019, didn't you? And the food on the ship is just wall to wall, isn't it?
Well, we got lucky in every direction when we went on our P&O cruise, because we had all the lovely stuff that was on the ship, but we also stopped off in loads of different places around Europe.
Yeah.
And, as we've been talking about, it totally suited my mentality of being able to just immerse yourself and have this experience. And, one day I remember walking around the Ramblas in Barcelona and eating like razor clams in the middle of the food market there. And then the next day, I think we went to Pisa. And it's just this thing. I loved the fact that you were chopping and changing your background, and everywhere you went was somewhere really exciting.
Yeah.
It was none of it where you're thinking, oh, shucks, it's only Cannes today. But everything was gorgeous. And everything that was happening on the ship was really fun too. I remember we would get back on and then stay up really quite late with the smalls because they were having all these discos every night. And quite a few of my kids really love a boogie. So, I remember having to sort of drag them out of some of the events, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Stanley going to kids club and stuff.
Oh, he'll love it. But not even the kids club. There's lots of stuff that was very family, and you can all be together. And it's really, it was lovely, actually. They all had a ball. And we had quite a funny thing, actually, because... So Ray, he's now 11. So back then he would have been, let me think. So I was actually pregnant when I went on that trip. So that would have been my 4-year-old. So Ray must have been about 6. And he got really obsessed with the hand sanitizer that they had on the ship.
Foreshadowing.
Well, actually he was, because firstly, it was quite a quirky thing to be so obsessed with. He just loved it. And I would actually be able to say to him, if you don't stop doing XYZ, then maybe you won't get that hand sanitizer. That was quite a weird threat to have for a kid anyway. But secondly, when he finished the cruise and I bought him his own one, and then there was suddenly a pandemic and a run on that stuff, it became like, hang on a minute, go to his bedroom, he's still got that vat of hand gel. How wonderful.
Now, in lockdown, obviously, you did your amazing kitchen discos. Like, what inspired that? Like, what gave you the idea?
Oh, golly, what inspired it? I suppose fundamentally feeling completely discombobulated by the lockdown. So we did our first kitchen disco, which people who don't know what I'm talking about, it was a live stream disco that we would do on a Friday night at 6:30 on my Instagram, where I would sing some of my songs, sing some covers, along with my captive audience, aka my 5 children. Who disappointingly aren't all fans. They would get quite bored with what I was doing quite quickly, actually. Start off jumping and then just flop on a sofa. But we did it the first Friday of the first UK lockdown, actually, because we'd been in our own family lockdown from about a week before that, because this was in the stage where there weren't any tests or anything like that. So one of the kids had got a cough, which meant everybody had to come home, which meant we were all at home for 10 days. So we'd already started to lose our marbles by the time I put on my first sequin catsuit and said, okay, let's do it. And it was Richard's idea. He's like, why don't we do this? I think I just wanted to connect with everybody and also give a bit of a shape to my day. I needed something to focus on, I think.
What was your favourite song that you sang on the kitchen discos?
Oh, well, I love doing all the covers because, whilst it might have given the impression online that our house was constantly sequins and disco balls, loads of it was domestic. The disco was half an hour on a Friday night, but the rest of the time, like everybody else, was stress and worrying about stuff and watching the news and flipping shed loads of laundry.
And trying to homeschool.
Yeah, exactly, which, I gave up on pretty quickly, actually, because if I wanted to do that, I would have been doing that already. It was not something I lent myself to very easily. So every week I would do a cover or two, like sing songs I loved. And it was really useful just to give my brain a little test. It'd be like, I'd be literally like bathing the kids and, practicing the rap for what I was doing or working out the key for the best key to do the songs. And then Richard would do all the sound stuff. So he would help me with like any edits or if I needed to like pitch something. It was brilliant. It was like a thing that both of us felt like this is a place we can go when we need somewhere else. Because I think that's probably, like a lot of people, the thing I struggled with the most was the stress, but also the lack of headspace. I felt like quite sort of hemmed in. So going, hang on a minute, never mind all that. I've got to learn this Julie Andrews song from The Sound of Music. Like, let me practice it again. I mean, the kids would absolutely, I'm sure they were thinking, can you stop singing? But in fact, I did break my phone during lockdown in a very camp way where I was practicing There Are Worse Things I Could Do from Greece, and I was really near the end, and one of the kids went, stop singing. I went, I just have to practice. I slammed my phone down, the whole thing shattered, and I was like, I think that's a sign of how tense, you know, how tense that it could be during that moment. I mean, golly.
I mean, if you could collaborate with anyone on a song, who would it be?
Well, the first person I thought when you said it, I mean, Julie Andrews, she can do anything on anything at any time. But Dolly Parton, I think, would be pretty special because she's such a storyteller and clearly, you know, one of the world's good guys. And I just think I'd love to just watch her in action. And apparently she's a prolific songwriter and gets up about 4 every morning and writes a song every day, which I think is a practice. I mean, the guys from ABBA are like that too. They said, you know, it's a muscle you've got to keep flexed. And sometimes you're going to write a hit, but a lot of times you're just writing and writing. And I think I'm interested in that because from our point of view, we just see the stuff that's worked. But obviously there's all that craft and experience that goes into it. And what a woman.
What's your favourite Dolly song?
I mean, I do just love all the really classic ones. I think Jolene is an exquisite song. I mean, what a elegant song about, you know, imploring a woman who could take your partner and saying, look, of course you could, but just please don't. Like, it really gets me. It's so heartfelt. And it's not a perspective we often hear of a woman speaking to another woman like that and saying, look, you could have your choice of men, but for me, I could never love again. It's just, I mean, Dolly has a way with words, doesn't she?
She does. And then I'm like, I like Two Doors Down because there's a slot machine in a casino in Vegas that plays it when you win.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
And it has the music video as your total is racking up.
Amazing.
And I'd never heard it before. I'd obviously heard all the big ones. I'd never heard Two Doors Down until my counter was racking up. And I was like, oh, I like this song.
And you associate it with success. Your endorphins were pumping and you're like, I love this music. Exactly. Hard. Have it as your ringtone.
So you've now got your Radio 2 show, your Kitchen Discos. How fun is that to do?
It's perfect. I mean, I absolutely love making the radio show. And it's basically a show, we call it the Kitchen Disco. So we just play party classics. Yeah. So I feel like I have a really fun job. Me and my producer, David, just put together loads of songs that we hope people will just like make their day go a little bit smoother or just, you know, soundtrack something, or if they're doing something mundane, it can just give them a lift. And then me being me, I like to put in these themed bits where I do like songs on a specific theme and they're usually quite quirky. I mean, Radio 2 often suggests them more like, they'll be like summer classics. I'm like, sure, but have you thought about doing songs that have brackets in the title or songs where all of them are about body parts? You know, so I like to push the notion of a theme.
Yeah. We have a playlist called Kitchen Vibes, which is at the end of the party when everyone, like when the last dregs of people, like at our family parties, the last dregs of people are all around the kitchen island. Oh yeah. And then Kitchen Vibes is the playlist that comes out, and it's got things like the Only Fools and Horses theme tune, and Only Fools and Horses, Minder, Forever in Blue Jeans, Ryan Sang Cowboy, all these absolute
gorgeous
bangers. Because we have a thing where if people are starting to put their coats on, my brother quickly puts on Only Fools and Horses, and by the time it's like bush, everyone's got their coats on, jumping around the literally, and it gets everyone back up again.
It's a tune. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your podcast as well. Now I have been on your podcast, Spinning Plates. It was amazing. It was such a fun podcast.
Thank you.
What made you want to start it?
So Spinning Plates is all speaking to working women who happen to be mothers, and it ends up being a chat about how motherhood has changed you, but all through the prism of your relationship with your work. Yeah. And I think that came about because when I had my first baby, Sunny, who's now nearly 20, it sort of knocked me for 6, really. And I think it took me quite a while to find my feet again after, just in my sense of self and how I was going to continue to do what I loved with music now that I was also a new mum. And I think also whenever I find myself, you know, sitting down at the bus stop next to a woman and we get chatting, or a work thing or anything, invariably, if we find out we both have kids, the conversation turns to that sphere. Yeah. And I thought, actually, these conversations are really, I think they're interesting. I think they're important. I think there's a lot about women's work that you can learn from, you know, the wisdom of others, but also there's so much that bonds people no matter what you perceive their life to be. A lot of the things they're coming up against and the emotions they encounter are the same. But I think I'm also just like a really curious bird, and I love hearing about why people do what they do.
Yeah.
It inspires me. And I think it sort of actually helped me give even more permission to myself to embrace my work and to give it proper space.
Yeah.
And I think before I started having these chats, I was still I could kind of belittle my work a little bit, really. I could say to the kids, oh, I've got to go away and do this, but I hate having to leave you and I'm so sorry. And, oh, it's only a little thing and I'll be back quick. And now I've slightly shifted it where I say, look, I'm going away because I really love what I do and I need to work, and I need it because, roof over our head, but I also need it for my sense of who I am. And I've worked really hard to get the opportunities I have, and they might not be there again in the future. So this is just all about seizing it, and don't worry, you're safe. I'm with you no matter if I'm physically there or not, but I need to go and do what I do. And I think it helped me reframe that a little bit. But yeah, some people's jobs as well, they're like, I mean, I spoke the other day to a woman who is a long lens camera woman for wildlife. So she goes away for 6 weeks at a time and just spends 16-hour days filming an elephant or a lion. I'm like, oh my God, tell me about that. That's fascinating. I have no idea what that must feel like. I want to know all about it. So I just, I can't, I'm always finding new people and thinking, oh, tell me more about how you got into that. Yeah.
Okay, I have 3 questions about your guests. Who's your favourite guest?
Oh, well, actually, my favourite guest was when I spoke to my mum, which sounds weird because obviously I have access to her as a conversational person quite frequently. But actually, we would never have had that conversation if I hadn't have set that that theme for the day, that we were going to talk about how she felt about having me, about how I changed her relationship with work, how she went back to work. I was really little when she went back to work, and she'd just come out of drama school, had me pretty young, then did things like Blue Peter and stuff like this when I was already 4, and I wanted to hear more about it. And I just don't think we would ever have talked about it. And it was really interesting to hear all of that. And I wish my granny had been around. Oh my gosh, I would have had her on a heartbeat. I would love to have heard her story too.
Yeah.
But there's, still loads of people I want to speak to.
Who were you most starstruck by?
I don't know about starstruck. I've had people where I've been quite like, oh, I've got to really know my stuff. I spoke to a lady called Gina Miller, who took the government to court over Brexit. So she's, whip smart. I just felt like I have to really know my stuff here about the ins and outs of the legality and what role she played in it.
Yeah.
And, there's some women I meet like that. And, I've spoken to politicians and people like that. And you just think, if I don't seem like I know what I'm talking about, this is going to be really awkward.
Yeah.
So I think every once in a while, or if someone's had a very long, illustrious career and a lot of it's been public and I feel like I'm studying for mastermind and I have to, like, my specialist subject is them.
Yeah. And who is your dream guest?
I'd love to speak to an astronaut.
Okay.
I would love to speak to a female astronaut who's had to go away to the International Space Station, leaving their child back on planet Earth. And just the idea of that, the magnitude of it, what goes into being a space engineer in the first place. Yeah, I mean, what's not interesting about any of that stuff?
Well, if any of you are watching, please get in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, and the astronauts who also like cruises.
So we're now into the penny drop moment segment of the podcast. This is basically a moment on board your P&O Cruises holiday where you went, yes, this is why I love this. This is why I'm here. This is why I want to come back. What was yours?
It's actually really easy for me, that, because I've spoken to you a lot about these bits where I've had, short spaces of time in different cities when I'm traveling. All of that stuff is basically happening when I'm working.
Yeah.
So that's me when it's just me on my own, or me with my band, or me with Richard. But the P&O Cruises holiday allowed me to do all the fun stuff of that, but with my children and with the absolute bliss of getting back on the ship and having a brilliant time when we got to the next bit. So if I was planning that from a standing start of like, we're going to go to, you're going to be in Rome, and then we're going to go to Alicante, and I've got to plan all this thing of traveling around 7 different cities in a week, that would be really stressful.
Yeah.
So all the stress of that, one of my children was really little when I did that holiday. He was only 2. So you know what it's like traveling with small people. So all of that, the hassle and the paraphernalia and the stress, which would have definitely put me off if it was just me doing it in any other way, vanished. Yeah. And we just could get back on the ship in the evening. We had a couple of days at sea, and they were having just as much fun with the transport. That was all part of the holiday too. So that was really brilliant. And they still speak about it now, actually.
Yeah. We were talking to my friend about that, actually, because she was saying about, you don't have to go near an airport. Like, unless you fly in at the beginning, at the end. But like to get to all these different places, you don't have to go through passport control. You don't have to go to an airport. You don't have to,
No.
you don't have to get on and off things. You travel while you sleep. And then every morning
Exactly.
you wake up somewhere different.
I know. How magical is that? It's brilliant.
I loved every morning. We had a balcony cabin. We were really lucky. And just opening the curtains every morning and seeing what was outside.
Yes. It's just, I don't think you're quite prepared for the first time you see that view, are you? Like,
No.
oh, wow, that's incredible.
I love it. So obviously your life is here, there and everywhere. You're traveling for work all the time. What does like a week in your life look like?
Yeah, I think my friends get quite sort of bamboozled sometimes because they can't quite work out like, oh, hang on a minute, I thought you were in that country. I mean, I'm quite used to having to do things very back to back. So, for example, this week I did an event where I sang in Dubai. So I was there for 2 nights, but I sang like very late on the second one. I think I was on about 1 in the morning. Then I was lobby call by 6 a.m. By early afternoon back in the UK. Then sang again that night at a brilliant event raising money for Terence Higgins. That was in central London. Then I had another event on the weekend in the Sussex countryside, followed by another event with my band at Butlins, Bognor Regis.
Just down the road from me.
Yeah, so it can be super varied. A lot of it is living out of a suitcase, but pretty happily so, actually.
Yeah.
And a lot of my suitcase is filled with twinkly things.
Amazing.
I like, traveling light. I mean, I mentioned the hand luggage, but it's not just about that. I do all my own. I like getting myself ready, so I do my own makeup and hair when I'm doing a gig. And I just quite like, I think there's a part of me that likes going very much back to sort of like quite basics, the simplistics. I think probably because a lot of my job can be weird and wonderful. So the more I can feel like I've got my, I'm quite sort of nomadic and I've got the things I need close to me and less fuss. The more I can sort of process what I'm getting up to and focus on the things I'm doing. I don't think having 5 kids is if you want a quiet life. I don't think being a musician is if you want a boring life, So while sometimes it can be, your mind can be spinning a little bit, it is definitely never dull.
Is it amazing having like a busy house with 5 kids? Because I want loads of kids. Like,
you know what? I really love, I think you have to love that kind of big family energy.
Yeah.
It definitely has a certain take on it. And when I meet people who've also got 4, 5, 6, 7 kids, we all understand what that means in terms of, the craziness, things happening in every corner, having to react to stuff, a lot of problem solving.
Yeah.
But also, like any big family event, it's all the quirky stuff that you can't plan for that becomes the brilliant stuff, things when, things have gone wrong or funny things or just unexpected stuff. And, my kids are all individual. There's a lot of eccentricity running through the whole family, I think. But I really hope they look back and think that their childhood was lots of fun. Because it's definitely, I find it really brilliant and such a good antidote to a lot of the world I inhabit when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
I come here and I come home, drop my bags, and no one asks me how my day was. So they just tell me all about what they did at school.
Yeah.
And that's what I want.
Oh, I love that. What's your dinner party story? Like, what's one story that you've got that you tell everyone? Like, what's your favourite anecdote?
Well, I think the thing that we get asked about, if you come around here for dinner, you'll see it in the driveway. So a few years ago, I worked with Save the Children, and I was lucky enough to do this trip, and Richard came too, where we went to Delhi. And we were seeing how the Christmas jumper day appeal, how the results of that fundraising had benefited people in Delhi and these families and these amazing kids. And while we were there, Richard and we were traveling to meet this family, and we saw all these tuk-tuks everywhere, the rickshaws. And Richard, in passing, I don't even know if he was joking to, and I said, those would be quite fun for the school run. So we get back to the hotel, and I'm like, actually, you can get tuk-tuk.co.uk. So in our driveway, we have the same colours and everything, the Mumbai tuk-tuk.
Oh my God, amazing.
And that's literally what we use for the school run. So I don't know if everybody comes back from Delhi and buys a tuk-tuk, but we did.
You take your kids to school in a tuk-tuk?
We do,
That is amazing.
It's quite insane, isn't it? The little ones absolutely love it. The teenagers, a little bit embarrassed. It's fine. But it's actually like really good fun.
What does everyone at school say? That's amazing.
You know what? We get a lot of people saying that's a really clever idea.
Yeah.
I mean, look, everybody's looking for cool ways to travel around. It's electric.
It's not like a pedal one.
No, so the way that the tuk-tuks work is they've got a scooter in the front and then 3 seats in the back that have the seat belts and everything. Richard did get it kitted out. One of his friends bought him this horn that does like it's got like 24 different settings. It's probably against the law, to be honest, because it does like. He's only allowed to press it if we're somewhere where there's no one around and no other cars. But yeah, it's just fun, and I think we have a bit of a soft spot for quirky ways of travel, so that really suits our sense of fun and humour. I think.
Love that. I think you're other tunes because there's like a food truck that goes around all the offices where I live, and it plays the Benny Hill theme tune.
Oh, brilliant!
And I literally I govern my life by it. By if I'm up and dressed by the time the Benny Hill theme tune is playing, I'm okay.
Then you have to run around it very fast.
I'm like, oh no,
chased by someone.
I'm like, the lunch van is here and I'm still in my dressing gown.
Just the way Benny Hill probably would have planned it.
Exactly. So we're coming to the end of the podcast now, and I've loved having you on. Thank you so much.
It's been very lovely to talk to you.
Now, I have one last question for you, but I'm going to have my list here because it's quite wordy. So, you've been gifted the holiday of your dreams. Ooh. Okay. Now, this can be anything. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to be doable. So, where are you going?
Well, that kind of, makes me sound really boring because in my head, so Richard and I got married in Italy.
Nice.
We have no connection with our families to Italy at all. We just really like everything about Italian culture. So I was thinking I'm really happy just going there. Okay. I haven't been back to where we got married since we got married. And we're coming up to our 20th wedding anniversary. Oh, wow. Yeah, so that'll be next year. So maybe we'll just go back there and have another big shindig. That'd be quite fun.
Amazing. So who are you taking with you?
Well, we only had 60 at our wedding, so it was quite fairly dinky. But back then we only had one baby, and now we'll take all the kids and the extended family, and of course all the friends that you've sort of added in since that time. Because there's always that, you go, oh, it's such a shame you weren't there. So let's have a big party there, shall we? That'd be really fun.
And I say, what are you doing there? You're having a party.
Yep.
Your favourite restaurant have said they'll fly in a team to cook whatever you want. What are you eating?
Oh, that's tricky because I love so much food. I'm very easy to feed because I just love eating stuff. But actually, when I was in my sort of early teens, my mum and I and my stepdad and my brother and sister all used to go to another place in Italy. So it's easy, you know. Yeah. And there's a beach restaurant cafe. So it's very, very basic. You know, you sit in your swimwear. Yeah. Your feet have got sand on them. You can see the sea. Yeah. And it's just all the classics, you know, delicious pasta and fresh fish and really delicious wine. So I'm really happy to eat all of that, please.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And your favourite entertainer or band, dead or alive, is available to perform. Who is it and what song are they opening with?
You see, that's sometimes a bit tricky for someone that is actually a musician. Yeah. I deliberately didn't
have to say the feeling.
Well, I was going to say, I don't really want any musicians at my wedding because I don't want them like rolling their eyes, sitting there going, oh, this is overrunning a bit. Because I know what they're like when they're waiting to perform. No, but in all honesty, okay, if I'm allowed anyone, I'll have the full original lineup of Fleetwood Mac, please.
Okay.
I just don't think you can lose with that. They can start with Everywhere, so you get a love song to begin it, and then they can just go through all the hits one by one. Amazing. I'll be so happy.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. And
it's been lovely.
In my head, I'm there. Yes. I'm watching them. Woo-hoo.
You're watching them.
Eating my pasta, dancing to Fleetwood Mac in Italy. It's great.
Amazing.
Come.
Yes, I will do. Thank you so much for watching today's podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a comment below and tell me what your favourite part was. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell so you never miss anything, and of course, give it a like if you did.